Okay, welcome back to United Pubcast, the podcast of the Man United Supporters Club here in Sydney for your Friday night pint. Something a little bit different to sort of wrap up the week and look to the weekend ahead, I should say. Obviously, we do have a match against West Ham, but we'll just combine our preview and just sort of a chat about whatever really does come up. So apologies to anyone in the live chat who was waiting. Larry was having a debate about tennis and vaccinations, but Larry, you're back into football mode and pub mode?
Yeah, for sure. I just want to confirm that Novak Djokovic was deported correctly, and I'm happy to crack on with the rest of the show.
Okay, let's please try and make this a tennis-free zone, a COVID-free zone, and just talk about football and whatever else pops up. But please try and stay away from all that because it is tiresome. But what we're probably going to talk about in terms of what you can see on the title, something we've been discussing for the last 10 years, Larry, which players aren't good enough for Manchester United. The manager has seemingly had his say, and we'll get into that. We'll dissect that and everything. But a few in the live chat here, Rob, as always, and Josh, good to see you. I know Josh will definitely be on the beer, so let us know what you are drinking, Josh. I have dropped the Stone and Woods. I'm just back on a standard Crown Lager. Larry, you're drinking?
I am. I'm on 5 Seeds cider, low sugar because I'm watching the weight. You've been telling me I've been fat for a long time, Tom, and I'm 3 kilos down, so we're getting there. But I'm gonna keep it low sugar, so no beer for a while for me.
Cider, that is tough to drink. Oh, I can't do it. Cannot do it to save my life.
Cider's good.
Nah, shocking. Let Larry know what you think of his drink of choice. Rob has gone for the Corona, but let him know what you do think of a cider. Definitely not my choice of beer, but we will crack on, and we can see from the title in terms of Ralf has said 3 players need to go. Now, how accurate these reports are, I'm not quite sure where it was. I think it might have come out of The Athletic. You can correct me if I'm wrong, or someone in the live chat, please correct me. I think it stemmed from The Athletic. Laurie Woodwell, I could be wrong there, saying that he's given a presentation to the board saying that Harry Maguire, Aaron Wan-bissaka and Luke Shaw aren't good enough for Manchester United and need to be sold. Now, how accurate that statement is or how accurate that report is, I'm not quite sure. It kind of does make sense. You could see that happening. Now, you could see that conversation happening. Now, the board implementing those decisions and taking Ralf Rangnick's advice on board and sort of taking action, that is another kettle of fish completely. So, Larry, just your thoughts. We'll sort of dissect all individual players and what it means both on the pitch and off the pitch business-wise. But just in regards to that report, they've singled out 3 players, Shaw, Maguire and Wan-bissaka. Manager says not good enough for Manchester United. Just on face value, what do you think of the story?
Well, I think those reports came out, and the next day in his matchday squad, either not in the squad or definitely not starting. We saw that he went with Lindelof, Varane, Diego Dalot, and and Alex Telles. So he's not doing much to really fuel that fire. I have to say, you did rightfully correct me. I didn't think Harry Maguire got the armband when he came on. I've since found a photo with Harry Maguire with the armband, so I stand corrected there. But look, Tom, I think I agree with it. I think Aaron Wan-bissaka has improved since he's joined United, but I don't think he's improved to the caliber or quite at the speed or the level that you would have wanted at this point. It's amazing to think he was a winger when he started off. Coming through the grades at Crystal Palace, he was a winger. I think he had only been a fullback for less than 12 months, but they saw something in him to say, let's try him there. And when you look at his ability on the ball, it just leaves you dumbfounded. How was this guy a winger originally?
Well, what do you think of one? Because when he came in, obviously big money signing, £50 million. And look, we can't hide how excited we were when we signed him. Now, a lot of that was off the back of this very good 6 months, a very impressive 6 months at Crystal Palace. And obviously we've all sort of gone on to the YouTube highlights and seen everything. We thought it was very good. We were extremely excited. And from the first moment we saw him kick a ball, we said, okay, he's not that good going forward, but defensively he's what he is. But now that attacking side of the game just isn't good enough for what we want. I just wonder where that change in our mindset sort of happened, because it was a price we sort of paid back on the first year under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Even the second season, we're saying, okay, part of a fullback's job is to defend, and no one is better at defending. But now, seeming Ralf Rangnick has come in, and even towards the end of Solskjaer's reign, Rangnick has come in, and suddenly you can't just be a defensive fullback. You do need to offer what Diego Dalot sort of does offer.
I think that frustration stems, I want to say, as far back as 12 to 18 months ago, I think. And what we've actually seen, when these 2 players were signed, Aaron Wan-bissaka and Harry Maguire, $150 million approximately spent on both players, or about £130 million. We have to remember that what were Manchester United? Let me ask you the question, Tom. What would you say was Manchester United's style when Ole Gunnar Solskjaer first took over, his first full season. How would you describe our style of play?
Look, I think you could do a whole podcast on trying to find out what it was. I don't think there was a clear answer. I think
All right, I'll give you
mainly
an
just saying a
example.
counter-attacking style. Mainly
That's
sit back
exactly
on a
it.
counter-attacking style.
That's exactly it. More times than not, we were a counter-attacking style. If you actually think back to that 4-0 win against Chelsea, opening game of the season, 1920, we blew them away. Every goal was a counter-attacking goal. It was when United played their best football. I'd even argue to this day it is when United play their best football, but that's a debate for another day. The reason that Aaron Wan-bissaka and Harry Maguire look so good, and I was scratching my head about this maybe around 2 weeks ago, and this is the conclusion I've landed on. Because we were a counter-attacking side, Harry Maguire didn't have to rely on his pace. If you think of the way Leicester played, it was a counter-attack. Very much so. It suited Harry Maguire. He sat deep. He had the ability to just rely on defensive instinct. He could be compact, had the protection of midfielders, and he could just simply get his head on the end of things and let the footballers do the football. Now, Harry Maguire is a weird one in the case of he actually looks quite good when he's playing out. He looks good when he's playing out with England. I'm starting to wonder, does he look good in England like the way Xhaka looks good for Switzerland? Is it a case of you look good when you get time in the ball because international football is a slower paced game? And I'm just wondering.
He also plays at 3 at the back for England, and some of his best performances for United have come in that sort of 3 at the back. If you look away at Manchester City.
And that's the thing. When Harry Maguire gets time on the ball, he looks brilliant. But then we've seen lesser footballers who we'd all agree we wouldn't take in Manchester United look really good in international football. I think there's a little bit of that with Harry Maguire. I also think that since we're obviously now a side that is trying to play out from the back, that's trying to play further up the pitch, I think Harry Maguire simply put Tom being exposed. Now, you can look to a defender in a similar mold. I'm thinking John Terry. John Terry was an absolute animal of a defender. Now, he was a player who wasn't very quick, but what he did so brilliantly was he read the game. He read the game so much better than many modern defenders do. And unfortunately with Harry Maguire, if you look at the goals he concedes, he's failing to shut down his man. I think back to the Liverpool game. Every time he's getting beaten, it's a cross and he's just failing to be the shield between his man and the near post. He's failing in that area, just fundamentals of defending. And look, I feel a bit bad for the Englishman, but in saying that, look, sometimes playing for Manchester United is a bit too much. And when you look at the way Harry Maguire plays at the moment, it all just looks like he's carrying a bit too much weight. Not physical weight. I think it's just the burden of Manchester United. And I think he's just been outshone. In the case of Luke Shaw, he's got all the talent in the world to be brilliant. We saw it at the back end of last season. The problem with Luke Shaw is consistency. You and I debated this. Let me ask you this question. Have you seen a player fluctuate in his weight more during his playing career like Luke Shaw?
I think there's always, when reports come out and stories come out, I think it depends who they come out and depends what the story is. We sit here and say, yep, I believe that story, that's true. Or sometimes we say, no, that's complete false. However, when we had John Silk on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, he's talking about a lot of the time, 90% of the time, there's a bit of smoke. Where there's smoke, there's fire. And with Luke Shaw, the first time he came into United, which he's been here a while now, you look, it's 2022. In 2 years, he'll be getting a testimonial. He has been here a long time. Louis van Gaal's first season. So when Louis van Gaal first signed him, there were reports that Luke Shaw was sort of just living with mates in the city centre sort of thing and having sort of takeaway dinners every night. And there was a question about his professionalism and his attitude or his desire to sort of be the absolute best. Those questions were raised, and we sort of sit here at the time and saying, oh, they're just sort of a witch hunt against Luke Shaw because he's Man United's new signing. I don't believe them. But you see how his career has gone, and sometimes, Tellez has come in, then there's a spark in motivation, then you see the best of Luke Shaw, then there's no competition, he sort of drops a little bit, sort of his form goes a little bit. And then when that form does go, you do look at from a professional side of things, and this is not to fat shame anyone or anything, but you do look at his weight, and he does put it on. And look, he's obviously a professional athlete, and when he does put a bit of weight on, he's still 10 times fitter than any of us. But it does look like it does affect his game because the fullback is the player who does the most running up and down the pitch. I'm not sure about stats in terms of distance covered, but the hardest running on the pitch is a fullback, especially in Premier League level and for a club like Manchester United. And you do have to question his professionalism in regards to that. Like you have the prime example at the other end of the pitch in Cristiano Ronaldo. Now you can say, okay, Luke Shaw does more running than Ronaldo, and that's a fair argument. But you just have to look at the picture in front of you. Look at the two people and who's going to have the more sort of longer career. The evidence is there saying Cristiano Ronaldo will, because of the commitment he does have off the field, where you look back a decade, the stories were that Luke Shaw doesn't have that commitment off the field.
The other thing with Luke Shaw is when you look at the way he's playing at the moment, there was a criticism. It's almost funny because I feel like the script is flipped a little bit. Prior to January 2021, where he goes on this purple patch of form for the rest of the season, it was his influence in the final third. Actually, you would have said defensively he was doing okay. It was the lack of adventure in the final third. Now he's getting into the final third. My problem with him is he's not busting a lung to get back and defend. And when he is back, and so the thing is, if you look at the highlights of him this season defending, they're very far and few between. He doesn't get back. He's too busy attacking. The other thing is him and Maguire playing next to each other. Oh my gosh, they've been each other's kryptonite. It's just that they're both in such horrible form that they probably just needed someone next to them who's a bit more experienced and in good form and can talk them through a game. Both of them are just killing each other. And that's the other thing. I don't know what's gone wrong with both of them. I think Harry Maguire is a better player than what he's been showing. I think Luke Shaw, it's clear. Luke Shaw is better than what he's showing. But at Manchester United, you need to be consistent. You and I have debated this before. What's the difference between, trying to think of a good player, what's the difference between Wilfred Zaha or Nani or Cristiano Ronaldo in his peak? The difference is consistency. You can be a brilliant Premier League player. The difference is when you play for Manchester United, you need to be doing that 9 times out of 10. And when you're doing it 4 or 5 times out of 10, that's where you're talking about, okay, maybe this isn't Luke Shaw's level. Maybe it's playing for a West Ham. Maybe it's playing for an Everton. But it doesn't, unfortunately for him, appear to be in Manchester United. And you have to say Ralf Rangnick's right in that.
We're talking about sort of, you look at this and it's a potential England, 90% of an England back four. When they all signed United in their prime, you could see wan-bissaka as England's right back, Luke Shaw as a left back, and Maguire as one of the centre backs. So I want to shift it. You just talked about Maguire and Shaw's combination. I want to go back to the right-hand side and pair Harry Maguire with wan-bissaka and sort of join these two in the same conversation. I just want your opinion on, okay, this is not they're not good enough for Manchester United, or they are good enough for Manchester United. But just look at, again, we had this discussion yesterday on what we value a good footballer as. Is it someone who's productive and puts up numbers and impacts games, or is it what they look like on the pitch and in terms of aesthetically pleasing as a footballer? And I just look at Maguire and wan-bissaka. When they play well, they play well. When they play bad, though, I think what sort of sticks in the minds of a lot of people, whether that be fans or the media and maybe even the teammates, the body language, not body language in regards to not trying, but in terms of the way they look like Sunday League footballers in the mistake. When Paul Scholes makes a mistake or Michael Carrick makes a mistake, they look good doing it. It looks like a footballer. When Aaron wan-bissaka makes a mistake, he looks like he's on the verge of breaking his own leg. When Harry Maguire makes his own mistake, he looks like he's a pub footballer overweight on a Sunday afternoon. Like, do you think that impacts our sort of mindset into when we are watching them play? Like if Cristiano Ronaldo makes a mistake or Bruno Fernandes makes a mistake, they look like footballers doing it. But these two, wan-bissaka and Harry Maguire, I think when they do it, it might be the simple mistake that every player makes 10 times a match. But when they do it, I think the visual of it, I think it does influence our mindset when we do view it.
Yeah, I take your point. Look, it's a tricky one. I think Marouane Fellaini is the most recent example I can think of. He's the one that you put in that mold, and I will come back and defend myself here. Piss off, Josh. I think Fellaini is the most similar one that you can think of, where you can say always tried hard, did his best efforts in the shirt, but you look at him and he doesn't fit that mold. And are we too spoiled as a fan base? Have we been accustomed to what a United player should be? Have we set the expectation that if you're not Paul Scholes, if you're not Michael Carrick, then you're not a good enough midfielder? Is that what's happened? If you're not Rio Ferdinand, if you're not Nemanja Vidic, you're not a good enough defender. I actually don't think that's the case. I look at Harry Maguire and I just think there's so many limitations to his game, and I just think if you're gonna be a defender for Manchester United, there has to be more about you. And I just think on the ball, when he gets going, he's good, but I think he's actually quite slow to progress it, and we've seen him getting caught on the ball many times that would either lead to a goal or lead to a shot on goal. And I think defensively, he's unfortunately just been left extremely badly exposed. When, like you said, the point you made around footballers making mistakes, when Varane has a bad game, you know that he looks like a defender who's just having a bad game. When Maguire looks poor, he looks like a Sunday League footballer. Now, before I bring it back to you, Tom, I need to defend myself here with Josh's comment up there. Maybe it was the way I said it. I was basically saying that if you look at what Zaha does compared to what Nani and Ronaldo did, I'm saying those two players were brilliant. 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10s every week. I know Nani fell away at the end, but
Well, if you actually look at Nani's consistency, I think it was over the first 50 or first 100 games, I'm not quite sure, but his comparison to Ronaldo at the time, Nani was actually far more consistent, as obviously Ronaldo then kicked on, and Nani did go the other way.
Nani was very consistent, and there was a season where he get Player of the Season. Was it when we won the league, the 19th title? I think he got Player of the
10,
Season.
11. Yeah,
he led with assists in the league as well. He was absolutely brilliant. He fell away toward the end there, but prime Nani was absolutely stunning. Is he one of your most? Is he one of your favorite footballers to watch? I know, obviously, when you're talking about
it didn't end up like that. No, it was one of my most frustrated footballers towards the end of his time. But you do have to look back, and I think considering what he was, a young player coming in from Portugal, you do have to take your hat off and say he was almost borderline great for United. Like, he could have very well just flopped in the first season, like a Bebe or Robertan, and never heard of him again. But he came on and had a sort of quite a long time at United for that type of player. So I definitely don't put him in that category of his favourite footballers. No. But definitely talented. You just look at the Champions League winning, or not Champions League winning, but the penalty in the shootout. He's got blood pouring from his head. He steps up, must win kick. It was the one before the John Terry penalty, and goes down in history, in my opinion.
Players like Nani frustrate me. You know what? He's very similar. I look at Anthony Martial and I get the exact same vibe. They've got all the talent in the world to be anything they want. And you get so frustrated when they don't fulfill that potential. Now, you look at what Nani did in a United shirt. It's a fair career. But
yeah, that's what I mean.
He could have been more.
I just want to bring this point up before we sort of go into the West Ham game and preview that a little bit. Just this comment here from Aussie Rogue. Did Ralf actually say to sell these three, or is this just clickbait in your opinion on who should be sold? Well, as I said at the start of the podcast, didn't know who broke the story. I just had a bit of a Google then, and it's Graham Bailey, a journalist over in England, who came out and said that Ralf Rangnick went to the board and sort of presented three players that he thought weren't good enough for Manchester United. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to be sold. That doesn't mean the story is true. However, if you do look at it, Maguire's come back in the team and been on the bench. Ralf Rangnick's first sort of point of business when he did walk through the door was to drop Luke Shaw and Aaron Wan-Bissaka. So I think there is something in this. Whether this is implemented, and maybe we'll finish up the chat on this, Larry. Okay, let's say he does want Maguire, Wan-Bissaka and Shaw gone. In the summer, do those three stay at Manchester United, or are the three sold, or what happens? Because I don't see a situation where the club can sell Harry Maguire, because then they're going to want 50 million for him, which simply no club is going to pay for. He's going to want 200 grand a week, which simply no club will do. So I cannot see a situation where Harry Maguire leaves. You can have whatever opinion on Maguire as a player or captain, whatever. He's not leaving Manchester United. I can't see how that happens. Wan-Bissaka and Luke Shaw, I think if they're told by the manager that they're not wanted, I think they could draw a scenario where they force through a move and happily accept to go. But just your thoughts on what's going to happen with the three.
I think the club will make efforts to sell them on. I think it's a tricky one. I don't think United are in a position to get rid of 10 players in one window. It's just not going to happen, right? I think Lingard will definitely go by the end of this transfer window. Martial, it looks like, I don't know, I'm starting to think he might actually, unfortunately, be stuck at United. There are players who need to go, but I think it's going to be very difficult to get rid of Wan-Bissaka, Luke Shaw, Harry Maguire, and then you've got Nemanja Matic, who's off contract. I know there's an option. I don't know if it's in his favor or the club's favor. But Nemanja Matic is off contract. No one's been talking about it. He is. Yeah. Paul Pogba. You've got Donny van der Beek, who looks certain to leave. Like we said, Jesse Lingard, Juan Mata. There's so many players who... Phil
Edison
Jones.
Cavani's leaving.
Cavani. There's so many players who need to go before these three, which is going to be a point of frustration. Look, I come back to Aussie Rogue's comment. There's something in it, and there has to be, because the fact that Luke Shaw is not first choice, Aaron Wan-Bissaka is not first choice, and Harry Maguire has sat the last 3 games on the bench. So the reality is, Ralf Rangnick clearly doesn't favour these guys. There's something.
Reminder from George that Andreas Pereira is still a Manchester United player who we've turned out a bid for. Apparently, where is he? Flamengo. I think they want to. Flamengo, Palmeiras. Things at Flamengo. They want 6 million. United want 10 million. So it's a mess. But Rob here is saying Maguire's the next Jones, hangs around and gets paid. So we laugh at that, Rob, and I completely agree. However, I think the situation we're in, that is going to be the case. I just don't, and this is not a criticism of Maguire saying he's just going to sit there and collect his wage. If someone is paying you 200 grand a week, and let's say, I don't know, Everton want him, Everton are going to pay him 80 grand a week, 100 grand a week, and Maguire simply won't take that. So I don't see a situation where Harry Maguire can leave the club at the moment.
I don't know, I think Harry Maguire is the sort of person who he'll want to play football. You got the World Cup coming up as well. That's something for players.
But United won't accept a bid.
No, I think they would. I think they'd be happy to. Look, at the end of the day, they're going to take a loss anyway. So you can either accept 40 million now, or you're going to let him go on a free in a couple of years. You're not going to get that 80 million back. Forget it. It's gone. So you either need to accept and cut your losses, or you let him go on a free like you did Paul Pogba in 4 years' time. Like, what's the way it's going to be, right? So you just got to accept you got it wrong and you sell.
Josh reminded me here of playing a bit of Tom Simpson bingo. Is he a better footballer than Scott McTominay? It popped up on my time. I didn't know we played Brentford before. We obviously played Brentford in pre-season. Remember that Andres Pereira goal in pre-season? That was against Brentford. One of the greatest goals I've ever seen. But we will move on to the West Ham preview because we do have a match to discuss a little bit. And if you are enjoying the video, please do leave a like on the video. That would be great. And if you are new, click subscribe. Make me and Larry very happy. West Ham, Larry, big game, top 4 battle. You wouldn't pick this at the start of the season. Ralf Rangnick against David Moyes in a battle for top 4. But here we are. Give me your thoughts.
It's going to be a tricky game, but you look at the league table, it's one United must win. Simple as that. With a victory, United can go to 4th. Now, I know Tottenham have 2 games in hand over us, but we need to start getting these results going. And I just think it's the sort of game where United just simply need to start winning, Tom. I don't know how much more I can say it. I think David Moyes has done an excellent job with West Ham. I like the way they play. I think they're a really good side. I really like, I don't know his first name, Bowen, the right winger.
Jared Bowen,
I like him. I think he's a good footballer. I think Declan Rice has gone another level. I have to admit.
What do you think? Declan Rice, here's the discussion. When we're talking West Ham, it has to be about Declan Rice because he's going to go for 100 million. Well, supposedly go for 100 million in the summer.
Yeah.
First impressions always last, no matter what the field, whether that be in your personal life, work, football. First impressions always stick with you. The first time I saw him play, I think he was away at Anfield and he was a young player, so very tough circumstances to judge a player. But he played in midfield and he looked like a defender playing in midfield. He looked like you put Chris Smalling in the number 6 role. He did not look comfortable, and that has stuck with me. Now, obviously, that was years ago. He's gone and improved, and he's obviously become a far better footballer, and obviously he's very good. So for me, the reason I'm not sold on him, maybe it's just the price tag. I hear Declan Rice and 100 million. I just say, no way. Maybe if I took that away, took the price tag away, and I said he's worth 30 million, I might think he's the best number 6 in world football. Maybe that would change my opinion. I think he's very good. I'm just not sold on him. I don't think he's the answer. He might come in and he might be absolutely brilliant. He might be the perfect sign, and I hope he is if he does sign for United. But I just don't see. I just don't see the answer with Declan Rice.
I look at him play this season, and I almost think he's become a better footballer, but he plays more like an 8 now, if I'm being honest. I actually don't think he plays like a 6. He's very much box to box. He is getting on the ball. He's contributing in the final third. And I think it's a massive game for Scott McTominay. I think it's one where I've come on here and I've said to you about the Scotsman, can he step up against a top 10 Premier League side? We've seen 2 good performances against Burnley and Brentford. The Brentford game particularly, very impressive. I like the way he drove into the midfield. I want to see Scott McTominay, Tom, put in a good performance against a top 10 Premier League side. And what an opportunity to do that against Declan Rice, the one that a lot of pundits are saying Manchester United really want this one to happen, a player we've been watching for a long time. If Scott McTominay can put in a big performance, maybe we leave this game saying we don't need Declan Rice.
Scott McTominay scored the winner against West Ham last season in the FA Cup. Not sure if Declan Rice is on the pitch. And again, that was just one moment. I forget about McTominay's performance throughout that game. I can't remember that. But look, I completely agree with you. And look, you won't find a bigger fan of me than McTominay. Maybe Emad in the comments might trump me on that. And yes, he does need to perform in these big games, but I think sometimes we look at, okay, if McTominay has a bad game against West Ham, we'll say, well, he's not up to it then. Well, what if the other 10 players have a bad game? He needs other players to play good for McTominay to play good. You can't just expect McTominay to have a good performance no matter what happens around him. If his midfield partner or his striker or his defenders are having a nightmare, it's not going to help McTominay. Now, yes, McTominay can only control his actions, but I think sometimes we don't look at the bigger picture. We just look at individuals. And it's a weird one, but I hope he has a good game, but it is a good test for him. Now, if McTominay lines up by himself in that number 6 role and Declan Rice lines up in his 6 role, maybe they were not actually really combined. Maybe they won't be sort of interacting too much on the pitch. You would like to see McTominay a little bit further forward. And I think those two, just in terms of their physical stature, will sort of gravitate towards each other. And it will be a midfield battle between the two, which you do kind of hope does happen. But anything else West Ham-wise before we sort of do a little bit of starting 11 predictions?
No, not really. I just think what I loved about McTominay's performance, it was a true midfielder performance. You know this term, you grab a game by the scruff of the neck? I think McTominay grabbed the game by the scruff of the neck. I think he left his footprint all over that game. I think he stepped up when he needed to. He set up Bruno's goal. He just made some brilliant runs. He could have scored himself with a long range effort. I was really impressed. I think McTominay. I think if you ask any United player what's been his best performance in a United shirt, it's very easy to think back to Leeds last season. He scores 2 goals in 3 minutes. I actually really liked this performance. I thought it was a mature performance from McTominay. Where do you sit with him at the moment? I'm always unsure with him. I'm always saying to myself, there's room for improvement. I think he's got the ability to go a further step as a player. Sometimes I look at him and I'm like, no, I think this is what he is. I think he's inconsistent. I think he can be good. Maybe he's just a squad player. Where do you sit with McTominay?
Yeah, no, that's where it is. I think he performs well. I think when we look at our better players in the team, and there's a question from Rob in regards to Pogba, but if we look at a Paul Pogba or Nemanja Matic, who's a better footballer than Scott McTominay, or an Andreas Pereira, we do look at these better footballers and think, well, they don't perform as well as Scott McTominay. Scott McTominay might not have the ability of those better players around him, but Scott McTominay performs better. So I just think, yes, okay, we can want better players, but what do the better players actually bring Manchester United? Because when we lose a game, we sit here and we think the one thing we need is heart, passion, and desire. Scott McTominay brings that. It's the one thing we all point to when we lose. Whenever we lose, we talk about players' commitment to the club. That is our number one sort of frustration. It's never a frustration with McTominay. When Paul Pogba loses the ball, we question his commitment. When Scott McTominay loses the ball, the other day you said Paul Pogba is everything that Scott McTominay isn't. Well, Scott McTominay is everything that Paul Pogba isn't. Like, there's a balance, and it'll be interesting when they do come back into the team. But in terms of, Rob just brought this point up here, in regards to the point I made in regards to Scott McTominay saying that he needs other players playing around, he makes the good point in regards to, Tom, if that's the same argument for Paul Pogba.
Hold on.
We're very critical of Paul Pogba in regards, but maybe that is right. We do have to, this argument about unlocking Pogba.
Pogba deserves to be criticised.
He is on a different level. I understand that, yeah.
This is the difference. McTominay, you play him in the 6, you play him in the 8, you get a level of performance. The thing with Paul Pogba is you play him as a 6, he turns to shit. He doesn't know how to manage a game. He doesn't know how to keep possessions. He doesn't know how to keep it simple. He's always trying to do a step over or do a trick on his side of halfway. The thing with Pogba is he needs everything to be perfect to flourish. Someone with his level of ability should not need everything to go his way. You look at pure ability, Paul Pogba has more ability than Roy Keane does. Roy Keane's double the player Paul Pogba is. Double the player. He needs everything to be perfect. He's always chucked a sook, always needs to play in a 3-man midfield. That's my criticism with Paul Pogba. And it's right criticism.
Well, on to team selection, because we have won a game and Ralf has spoken about the importance of sort of not changing winning teams. Do you think he is going to change it? Because I think there could be a change in that front three. Because as I said, we gave our 3-2-1s yesterday, and the 3 goal scorers didn't feature in our 3-2-1s. Now, that wasn't to criticise them, but there were more standout performances elsewhere on the pitch. So I just think they're very hard to drop. Well, one of the goal scorers is obviously off the bench. But are those 2 wide men, I think they're the people in question. I think the back 4 stays the same. I think the midfield will stay the same. I think maybe there is a case, maybe bringing Fred in for Matic. Matic in for Fred and dropping Matic a little bit deeper where McTominay was and let McTominay get further forward. I think that's a possibility. But I think the main sort of debate around team selection this one is Greenwood and Anthony Langer. Could you see a change there where Marcus Rashford or Jadon Sancho comes in for one of them?
I think Sancho is the most likely one. I think, given Ralph's comments, I could see a Langer pulled out and I could see Sancho lining up on the left. Like I said to you about Greenwood the other day, I think he's a good player playing in a system that doesn't suit him at the moment. I think to get the best out of Mason Greenwood, I think we've come to a point in his development, Tom, where he needs to be deployed centrally. I'd like to see him rotated there, with whether that's with Ronaldo or Cavani or whoever. I just think he narrows things up a little bit. I like Mason Greenwood. I'm a massive fan. I think he's truthfully, if you're going to put a Ballon d'Or clause in anyone's contract, you put it in Mason Greenwood's. I think he's the one with the genuine talent to go on and achieve great things in the game. I personally would like to see Sancho or even Rashford on the right, personally. In saying that, if you're asking me what Ralf Rangnick's going to do, I could very much see Jadon Sancho coming in on the left. I think Elanga, not necessarily dropped, I'll say rested, rotated. Other than that, I think it'll be the same. I think Ronaldo stays up front, and I think Greenwood comes on the right.
It'd be a brave man to drop Ronaldo after his so-called temper tantrum on the weekend.
Spit heat caused. Jeez, take him off after 20 minutes. Imagine benching him.
But look, I completely agree. I think Jadon Sancho, because I think Ralf Rangnick deep down does have, maybe it was a first impression, as I've mentioned earlier regarding Declan Rice. I think Jadon Sancho does have a spot in Ralf Rangnick's team. I think he does want to get the best out of him. So I think that there is a scenario where he does come back in. I would say at home maybe for Anthony Elanga. I think Greenwood probably does keep his spot just in regards to that goal threat. Now, obviously, Anthony Elanga has a goal threat. We've seen that now. But I do think maybe if there is one change, it will be Sancho. But I would like to see, as I said, Matic come in for Fred and Matic sit a little bit deeper. And then you can have that battle between Scott McTominay and Declan Rice. But let us know your score predictions in the comments. But Larry, quick score prediction before we start to move on and wrap up.
I am so wrongfully confident. I'm
confident as well, weirdly.
Yeah, we're both.
Although I was confident against Brentford.
Yeah.
A Manchester United fan, confident against Brentford and West Ham.
What's the world come to? United. I really do. I'm feeling a 2-0 win. I feel like, dare I say it, Fred, if you pray for victories, please hear my prayers here. But I like the three-man midfield. I think we finally found the formation that gets the balance of the team right, and I think you'll see United continue to improve. I think United will win this one.
Yeah, well, Josh going 1-1, Antonio going 3-1 to United, 2-1 to United for George, and Ahmad going balls deep with 3-0 to West Ham. Yeah, I can't say that one happening, but feel free to put a couple of quid on. You definitely be happy if that happens. But look, I'd say 2-0 United. Again, I don't know where the clean sheet is coming from, but I would go 2-0 Manchester United.
Clean sheet's coming because Harry Maguire will be sat on the bench again.
Well, that's an interesting one. I think Lindelof and Varane keep their spot. Now, again, we talk about performances, and we could be having a very different discussion about their performance if we're 4-0 down at half-time. We're talking about the defenders in a very different light. So I think their performance was a hard one to judge. I'm sure Ralf Rangnick had a very different view when he looks back at the tape. He might see perfect performance by them, or he might have seen the absolute worst performance by them. He obviously did shift that 3 at the back when we were 2-0 up. But just one or two more predictions here before we start to wrap up. Ryan here, 3-1 to United. Sam 3-2 to United. Well, West Ham, there's always seems to be a bit of a classic or thriller against West Ham. And Vin on the same train of thought with 4-2 to United. What was that 4-2 that one up Upton Park or 2-0 down and Rooney hat-trick and someone else scored? Yeah. Was it 3-2 or 4-2? Yeah, but an absolute classic at Upton Park. But for the Friday night pint, Larry, obviously discussing a little bit earlier, what can we add to the match preview? And obviously the days do change. So it's hard to keep schedule because one day United play on a Thursday, the next they play on a Sunday. So it's hard to get a schedule. So we'll try and keep these Friday shows a little bit consistent and incorporate a match preview to it in regards to also what happened during the week. And in regards to what happened during the week, Larry, in terms of, there's always a photo. I know obviously early in the year now, we look back in football and sport and say, what was the photo of the year? There's always a photo that, yeah, I remember that, and it's a sort of iconic image. In regards to here we are, football YouTube, football Twitter. I'm sure everyone in the live chat is on Twitter, social media, and obviously have access to the internet nonstop. And here we are on YouTube talking football. There is one photo that has won the internet for me. I'll just bring it up here.
Yeah.
The reason I bring it up is because I think it is a discussion point. Look, first of all, I don't want to get into the banter in regards to, we do have to remember there is a victim in this. So we're going to throw enough shit at this guy, and rightly so. But I think the one person who has been forgotten in this saga is the victim. So you do hope she is okay and she gets all the support she needs. The kids of this guy get all the support they need and don't get any abuse. But in regards to what this guy has done, I can't believe it. And it does affect football because think, why are we trying to talk about this guy? However, their job titles, if you do look at them and the way they sort of promote themselves on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, whatever, they're described as influencers. And when you hear that word influencer, you think, calm down, mate, you're not an influencer. But the fact is they do influence football. Look at the impact he had on Arsenal, the football club, and Arsene Wenger. Look at the impact Goldbridge has on Manchester United and some of their decisions. These guys do influence football and fan media. Here we are on a YouTube channel talking football. I think it is a huge story that's not been swept under the carpet. It is huge, but I think it's worth talking about.
I've kind of flipped on this one, I came on here the other day with you and we poked fun a little bit, and I truthfully I've been reading this book, Tom. It's called Good Vibes, Good Life by Vex King. And the book is talking about genuine vibrations, the feeling you get around certain people. And it talks about, when you associate with people who give you bad energy, that trusting that vibe when you're with certain people, that, you should trust that vibe. We've all been in that situation when you're with someone and you feel that negative energy. You get a little bit of that when you watch DT. Very angry in his interviews, and angry that borderline concerns you always. But what I will say is, I came on here the other day. I poked a bit of fun with you. I'm gonna apologize for that, to be honest. And the reason I'm gonna say that is because I genuinely believe, now people might disagree with this comment, I genuinely believe we need to, as a society, not be so extreme in throwing people under the bus, saying that they're garbage, saying that, you deserve everything bad that happens to you. I think we need to allow for rehabilitation. We also need to allow for, now look, what he did, I don't excuse.
Not in regards to what he did. Like,
No.
if someone goes to the pub for, okay, you have a fight with someone, that's one thing. This is assaulting and kidnapping a woman, for God's sake.
I take all of that. I'm not saying I excuse what he did. I'm not saying I forgive what he did. And I think, what he did was heinous. It's one of the worst things you can do. In saying that, every person in society, once they do their time, they need to be afforded the opportunity to rebuild and rehabilitate themselves. Now, if he comes out of this a better man, and if he comes out of this saying, he's going to commit to doing some sort of charitable work in terms of being a vocal member or an ambassador for violence against women, if he can turn this into a feel-good story where he makes a positive contribution to society, then you know what? Take your hats off to him after that. But we have to be open as a society to allow people to rehabilitate themselves. Because what we are at the moment, and this is why I'm going to flip the script for you. If he comes out of prison and he's trying to do all that good, what do you think their instant reaction on social media is going to be? Fuck off, piss off, you did this back then, you're a scumbag, go kill yourself. And then these are the sorts of stories that lead to suicide. Do you remember that? I can't remember what show it was. There was a host, a female lady. I can't think of her name. She committed suicide. She got charged with something around kidnapping or domestic violence. Yeah. She got found not guilty. She committed suicide. This is the sort of thing that happens. If you look at social media at the moment, that's the sort of thing that can result out of this. Now, I'm not a big fan of DT. I don't like the way he carries himself. But in saying that, I believe as a society, we need to move away from kicking people when they're down constantly. And
look, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. And in an ideal scenario, and in a perfect world, I completely agree with you and on your side. However, it's not an ideal world. It's not a perfect scenario. And you go back to the point you made earlier in terms of you get a feel, you sort of judge a book by its character and you get a gut feeling. All these things you've said aren't going to happen. This is a guy who was in prison at 19. He didn't learn from his mistakes then. He's been in and out of trouble for the last, he's 40 now, so he's been in and out of trouble for 20 years. He's not going to change. This is who he is, unfortunately. So in an ideal scenario, if someone does make a mistake, yes, you afford that opportunity to get rehabilitated, but he simply hasn't. And in regards to the crime, look, it's shocking. You talk about you don't forgive him, or just I can't forgive it in terms of what he has done, because it's not a shock. These jokes were sort of maybe at the time sort of wrongly accused of him. He's talked about being a wife beater, etc. And you think, okay, that's a bit too far because he obviously hasn't done that. Well, the fact is that is who he is. So I just think for me, 3 years isn't long enough and good enough if you want to excuse the pun. 3 years should be 33 years in my opinion. I think it's shocking what he has done.
I agree with you. I agree with all of that. I'm not, and that's the thing. I want to make it very clear. I'm not excusing his behavior. I'm just saying that should this guy come out of society, should he want to continue his YouTube career, should he want to, do charitable works or become I hope he comes out and he says, you know what, I want to be an ambassador for violence against
Well, on
women.
that state, in terms of coming out, he's obviously, I don't know when he goes to jail, but he's come out on Twitter and there's a huge statement. I won't read the statement out. He's kind of defending it, not defending it, but he's going, look, it was just, I've had mental health problems. It was 9 minutes of madness. Like he scored a hat trick for Bayern Munich or something.
Hold on.
9 minutes of madness. And then he says, take care, see you in a few years. Like he's going online to Bordeaux or something.
What did you want him to say though? Like what would he have said that would not result in criticism?
Nothing. Go to jail and do your time. Nothing. Don't say a word.
Okay, but
I don't want to hear from him.
I'm playing devil's advocate here, right? I'm not trying to defend him. But what I'm trying to say is if he genuinely look, we don't know the full story. In saying that, what I can, based on the facts, based on what he's been charged with and found guilty of, yes, heinous crime, absolutely. But he did come out in his statement, look, we live in a social media mad world, like you said. He felt the need to say something and defend himself. I can understand that to some extent. In terms
I don't think he wanted to do it for getting his side. I think he just wanted the attention. He puts a statement like he's a new signing somewhere. I don't think it's. I don't think
he wanted it as a new signing, Tom. But when people are pummeling you left, right, and center, you feel the need to come out swinging. You feel the need to come out and say something. I can understand that. Put yourself in his shoes. I know you'd never do what he did, but if people are attacking you from every single direction that you can see, then I can understand from his perspective why he felt the need to get something out there. So from his, and if I'm looking at what he said, yes, I take your point, acting like, 9 minutes of madness, scoring again. There's nothing, the second he chose to make a statement, there is nothing he could have said that would not be criticized. Whatever he said was going to be scrutinized. Whatever he said was going to upset people. So from that perspective, you know what? If that makes him feel better, I don't look at anything he said. He didn't defend his crime. He apologized and he said he's going to keep.
I think he kind of did try to defend it. Well, he tried to defend it. He tried to say, look, it's like Harry Maguire saying, I'm not making excuses, but this is the reason. This is exactly what he's doing.
I take your point there.
Not making excuses, but I've got mental health issues.
Never put your hands on a woman. Never put your hands on a woman. But I think what he's trying to say is in 9 minutes of madness, it's like when someone absolutely loses their temper and they punch a hole in the wall. Now, look, I would like to think, especially about myself, I'd never put my hands on a woman. If I feel like I'm in a heated exchange with a woman, make the mature decision, walk away. What he did was heinous. And the thing is, the 9 minutes of madness, I can't even accept that. He put a tracker on her phone. So that's not 9 minutes. That's premeditation. You wanted to know where she was. So, I don't agree with any of that. But in saying that, whatever he was going to say was going to be scrutinized. That's what I guess I'm trying to say.
Well, I'm sure this, Matt, here, I don't think he agrees with you. Can't believe what I'm hearing. I'm sure this will continue into the group chat long into the night. But before we get long into the night, we do have a weekend to look forward to. Anything else on the weekend besides? Because, look, I could go in another hour on DT. I don't agree with a lot of what you said there. I understand where you're coming from. But I think in this instant, in regards to what we think of DT and what we do know of him, I think this is who he is. I don't think he's going to be rehabilitated, but that is a debate for another day. I think 3 years is. I think 3 years is way too short. I think it should be far longer, and hopefully he gets what's coming to him in prison. Hopefully, some people do deal with him the right way, in my opinion. There, but in regards to the weekend and Manchester United, anything else on the weekend?
Weekend.
UFC 270 pay-per-view heavyweight title fight.
Oh yeah. Are you getting that on pay-per-view, or are you
No, UFC bumped up the it's time to go behind bars. I like that one. I've seen some good memes in regards to that one. No, UFC, well, actually ESPN, to be fair to them, not UFC, have put up the price of pay-per-views $5 this year. So it's not a great card. Obviously 2 title fights, which is good, but the rest of the fights aren't fantastic. But obviously the 2 title fights, flyweight and heavyweight. Do you have a prediction for the heavyweight? Cyril Gane and Francis Ngannou?
Francis Ngannou is a baller, isn't he? Just an unbelievable fighter. One of my favorite UFC fighters, has to be said.
He's a big guy, the most dangerous puncher. I think, look, Cyril Gane I would have picked maybe a year ago before Ngannou knocked out Stipe Miocic. I would have said Cyril Gane, but what Ngannou did against Miocic, I do have to think Francis Ngannou, he's the best in the world at the moment, and they've obviously got that little bit of history of sparring together, and apparently Ngannou did, whether knock him out or knock him down, and Ngannou did get the better of that sparring session, so you do have to think, Ryan here saying round 1. I think smart money, Francis, the way he does swing in round 1, you do have to assume he could get it done early, but if it goes to the ground, it will be interesting to see what Gane does do.
Man. Hey, Tom, can I ask you, look, you've been following UFC much more religiously than I have. I've probably only gotten into it properly over the last 5 years. Can I ask you about Conor McGregor? Like, where do you stand on him at the moment? Just because when I look at Conor McGregor, I think his legacy is tarnished a little bit. I think he's taken it a bit too far for me in the sense of, yes, he took the money fight against Floyd Mayweather, but you can't deny his UFC record since then hasn't been impressive. He's taken a few big losses and 2 back-to-back losses, it has to be said. And on top of all of that, I think the way he carries on, and look, I've been a really big, staunch Conor McGregor fan. I find it hard to like him at the moment. Just comes out bragging about how much money he has. But at the end of the day, you respect an athlete for what they do in their profession. I think you look at Roger Federer, he's absolutely brilliant in terms of a tennis player. You respect him. He carries himself with an element of class. Cristiano Ronaldo, now been top of the game for best part of 15 years, still doing it at the age of 36. That's my key point. These guys are still doing it. Conor McGregor hasn't put in elite world-class performances for arguably 5 years now. So where do you stand on Conor McGregor's legacy and the way he carries himself?
Look, when you're discussing someone like him in regards to combat sports, you have to split it up into 3 categories. One, the fighter, and obviously his performances in the cage or in the ring. One, and then second, the person, what he's like away from the camera. And obviously some of the footage that we have seen, as you say, it's hard to like him, some of the actions he does get up to. But then 3, the entertainer. And you do look at stuff like with the Khabib stuff in terms of how that sort of unfolded. He is an entertainer at the end of the day, and he's a prize fighter. He's not there to win titles. He's there to make as much money in every single fight as possible. So there are 3 different things. There's the fighter, which we can look at, and his skill set and his results. We can look at the person away from fighting, and that's another thing. But we also the entertainer, and that entertainer does influence our decision on the actual person. And they're 2 different things in terms of people close to him. But like a lot of people say, he's the nicest guy, and obviously Conor McGregor is a very shy and sort of ironically, away from that entertainment side, he is a very humble guy off camera, apparently from all reports sort of back in Ireland, but he does play an entertainer. He does sell fights. But you do look at his performances and you look at that Khabib fight, and obviously no one beats Khabib. At the end of the day, Conor McGregor is the only fighter in the world to have taken a round off Khabib. He did win that 3rd round against Khabib. Now, ultimately, he did get smashed, but he's the only fighter ever to win a round. Dustin Poirier, he did lose twice, but he has beat him once. The 2 very weird fights in terms of the way they did end.
This comment here. Another Paul Pogba gets a haircut before every game. Is he talking about Conor McGregor there?
I'm not sure. Well, no, he does. He does like to shave his head before a fight, but obviously his last fight against Cowboy, he had a bit of a longer hair. He didn't shave, so maybe he should have done that. Ryan, he's saying Conor is too busy as a pub landlord and making the Guinness equivalent now. Well, look, that is where that could take away from which we look at Jesse Lingard or we look at Paul Pogba and we talk about distractions. That is something that you have to label at Conor McGregor in regards to what he is doing in and outside the cage and how that does affect him, because he's making most of his money now off his whiskies, not his fighting. Because what do you get a fight out of Conor McGregor now? Once every 2 years, probably. Now he's got injured, so he's going to be out for a little bit longer. And I think he sold his whiskey for 600 million type thing. So that is where his money is.
He sold it, proper whiskey.
He sold a stake in it, so that's why he's the highest paid athlete in the world. In terms of per minute, he came out, trumped everyone, trumped Mayweather, LeBron, Messi, Cristiano Ronaldo. And it was off the back of the whiskey sale, not off the back of the Dustin Poirier fights. So it's an interesting one. But in terms of, I always liken Conor McGregor to David Beckham in regards to people inside the game. So David Beckham, people within the game don't like him because they saw the celebrity and they said he's overrated. Now people outside the game saw the name of David Beckham, said he's the best in the world, where that's not the case. Well, in 98, 99, he put very well close to the best in the world, but he was never the best in the world. But the casual football fan said he is because of the name. I think a lot of casual MMA fans look at Conor McGregor and say he's the best in the world, where that's not the case at all. He isn't. However, people within MMA and UFC look at Conor McGregor and they take away his accomplishments because of the celebrity, and they say, oh, people underrate him because of his name. Where if you do actually look at the body of his work and his skill set, he is one of the best ever to do it. He is unbelievable. You do look at his losses. They're coming sort of against top quality opposition. And at the end of the day, a fight is a fight. Someone can lose a fight.
When he beat Alvarez, I think that was definitely an argument to say he was... I think that was an argument to say he was the best fighter in UFC. No, an argument. I wouldn't. I think, and that you could.
In terms of title fights, if you look back at title fight history, that was arguably the best performance in a title fight. It was unbelievable because Eddie Alvarez is an absolute monster, and he just sort of toyed with him for 2 rounds. But then ultimately he did go and chase that Mayweather fight and came back against Khabib, and the rest is history. But yeah. All that, we are looking forward to, obviously, not the lightweights, but the lightest weight of the men's division in flyweights on Sunday, and then the heaviest in regards to Francis Ngannou and Cyril Gane. But that's enough UFC talk, Larry. Maybe discuss that next Friday. We'll have a review of the UFC card, UFC 270, but I will be down the pub for that one on Sunday afternoon. But more importantly, Sunday morning, 2 a.m., is United against West Ham. Hopefully everyone in the live chat will be setting the alarms with us. I'll be on the couch, not at the pub, though, for that one. Larry, you are confident of that. If you are confident of United win, or not even if you're confident of United win, if you're looking forward to United playing football, please do leave a like on the video. And if you are new, if you could subscribe, that would be great. Hopefully everyone did enjoy this, something a little bit different, a little bit of football chat, a little bit of court dealings in the UK chat, and a little bit of UFC. So good way to spend a Friday night, because if you ask someone to go to the pub now in Sydney, you just can't do it. In terms of, if I ask you to go to the pub, what's going to be the answer? Sorry, mate, I'm in isolation, can't go. So we might as well sit here in a sort of bit of a virtual pub, because whoever I asked to go to the pub with, sorry, wife's got COVID or girlfriend's got COVID, or I'm in isolation, I'm a close contact. You can't go to the pub with anyone these days. So this is going to be my ritual on Friday nights now, I think, Larry.
Yeah, I've quite enjoyed this. And look, if you're in the comments, like the video, let us know what you thought of this. We thought we'd do something a bit different, bit of football, bit of casual talk as well. I've really enjoyed it, Tom. I'm off to get my Orient Igalo. I'm off to get Ogalo's for dinner. If you know what Ogalo's is. And now every time I see that sign, I think of Igalo. Can I say to you, Orient Igalo's chant when it came out, if we knew back then what COVID would become, I don't think that chant would happen. But my gosh, it makes me laugh to this day.
Well, actually, I think we might one day, well, maybe in the international breaks, there's obviously an international break. I didn't know there was breaks in January, but there's an international break next week. I'd love to look back at Igalo's time at United, because it was interesting. It was the start of COVID. He came in. It was like everyone was frustrated with the signing, but then he came a little bit of a cult hero. He actually performed very well for United, but ultimately not good enough in regards to, have a choice between Cavani, Ronaldo, or Igalo. Obviously, Igalo was bottom of that list, but he did do very well at United. I think he was a fan favourite. Very interesting situation. Ryan here's saying pub for UFC on Sunday. I'm keen if anyone else is. We'll stay in touch or to see where everyone is watching the fight. But as I said, it's not the biggest fight, but I'm not paying $75 or whatever it is for the pay-per-view. So definitely find a pub somewhere. But stay in touch. Larry, until then, 3 points for United on the weekend.
Yeah, 3 points. I will leave you with, if you haven't seen this stat, on the anniversary of Sir Matt Busby's death, God rest his soul, Manchester United had 3 academic graduates score against Brentford. Marcus Rashford, Anthony Elanga, Mason Greenwood. If you could write a better tribute to Sir Matt Busby, let me know, because I thought I think that's as good as it gets. He's the one who put the ethos of United developing their own. So
no, it was good to see. Definitely, and we sort of continue that stat since 1934 of academy players in the matchday squad, not only the matchday squad, but contributing, scoring goals and winning football matches for United. And just on that, in regards to, we'll wrap up. Obviously, in a couple of weeks, 6th of February will be the Munich anniversary. We'll do I don't know what we'll do, some type of special episode, some type of chat in regards to the anniversary, Munich, Busby Babes. So if you do have any ideas for what you'd like to see for a video on that topic, please do let us know. That would be great. But until then, we will chat to you Sunday night Sydney time or Sunday morning UK time to discuss 3 points against West Ham and McTominay bossing Declan Rice.
Till then, mate.
Cheers, mate.